So it's lesson 10, part 3. So we've got a couple of items here we actually need to debug. One, so yes, Hung, thanks for the suggestion. We did this last week. We need to set our strict property initialization to false in our TypeScript configuration. So I'm going to go to my tsconfig.json. And in my Angular compiler options, we'll set strict property initialization, which Hung has put in the chat. We're going to set that to false. So that's one issue. I'm going to add this to my tsconfig.json. Good fix. So that's part of our problem. It's not the only problem. Part of the problem is actually in the API on the server side. And you'd think I would read my own lesson notes and remember this, but it's one of those days. Okay. So when I ran the API, notice we get this. So when I refreshed and I use my web console, cross-origin request blocked. The same origin policy disallows reading the remote resource at localhost 3000. The reason the CORS header, the access control allow origin is missing. Remember, our API and our client app are running on two separate domains in effect. So by default, this request that our service is making to localhost 3000/project, it's actually being blocked. So we're going to have to modify our controller, our API, to permit cross-domain, cross-origin requests from another domain. So we need to add a bit of code into our controller header to allow this. So I'm going to go back to my server controller and open up our projects.js. So we need to allow requests, I guess it would be allow cross-origin requests from Angular app on another domain. So we'll use the router.use command with request, response, and next. So this method will be called automatically before any of the other requests. So we need to set the access control allow origin. So I'm going to move later on, maybe next week, we'll put this in the configuration, but for now, we're going to hardcode this as localhost 4200. So we are allowing this domain to make requests into our API. We also have to set the allow headers property content type and accept. So we've got to allow these headers. We also now have to specify which HTTP methods we're going to allow, which are going to be get, post, put, delete, and options. So our Angular app will need all of these things in order to make API calls. So we're going to allow the methods get, post, put, delete, and options. And when this is all done, we call next. So this method will fire automatically before any method in the API. So this executes before every method in this controller. So if I go back and refresh my app now, I'll put the code on paste bin. This should, I'll just make sure it works. This should prevent this cross origin request blocked. And now, lo and behold, here's our data. So by default, the API will not allow requests from other domains, and this is obviously for security. So that needs to go, this code needs to go at the top of our controller. I'm going to look at formatting the date. How did we do it here? Oh, we used a helper for this, so I may have to leave that for right now. We can also now add some CSS. So the easiest way to add CSS is probably just to include Bootstrap in our Angular app. We can also fix the page title, which is hard-coded here to say client. Okay, so make sure in your node controller, now we've hard-coded this path in, and just like in our service, we've hard-coded the path to the API. We should probably put both of these paths, we'll do this after, we want to put both of these paths in the configuration file. Rather than hard-coding them into our JavaScript, they actually belong, you know, they should be part of our config file, which we can do. Actually, may as well do that now, and then we'll add Bootstrap. Why don't we? So instead of hard coding in the host, I'm going to add the client URL, the client domain, and the server domain. I'm going to put these into the globals file. This would probably make more sense. So we'll modify. So in here, in our globals, after the database, let's create an API server, which will be localhost 3000. We'll also our client server will be localhost 4200. So we're going to add that, and then we'll take out the hard coding of those domains in both our controller and our service. And we'll read the values from the config file instead. So we'll do it. We'll change it first in our our server controller. Then we'll change it in our Angular service. So we'll link to our configuration in the controller. And then instead of hard coding this, we'll use config.client. Okay, Hung, can you look, if you load the API in your browser, do you get the JSON data? Does the API work on its own? That's the first thing to check. Whether you can load the data directly from your API. So I've replaced the hard-coded URL here with the client URL from our configuration. And I want to make sure that the data still loads. Yep. So by moving that URL into our config file, we can still read the data. I'm now going to go to the project service because, again, we've hard-coded the API server. We want to read this from our configuration file as well. So we'll go to the service. And add that as well. So in my service, now we're one folder deeper here. Actually two. So config and globals. Whoops. I don't know. Sorry, should be. Whoops. I think we'll try it this way. I'm going to change my URL. We'll see if this works. To config. Okay. I'll have to come back to this. It's not reading it properly. Doesn't like the way I've done this. Okay. I'll leave it for now. I'll fix it up later. Sorry, Justin, I'm not following. Can you clarify? Yeah, but it's got to be this is config's only referring to the file. We need the API server. So when I hit config, I need the API server. But it doesn't recognize that. So I'll have to figure out the right syntax to grab it in the server. I don't think it'll work that way. So I'll leave it hard-coded here in the service just for now. Yeah, I mean, you're right. That would be the syntax. But again, the config is pointing to the whole file, and we need the API variable, which it's not letting me read right now. So I will sort that out. So I want to change the page title and add some CSS to this. To change my page title, we can go to the index.html file where we change the app root to app project. So I'll just call this project SPA. And I'm going to copy over into our client source. And maybe under assets, I want to add Bootstrap in here. So I'm going to put it under the assets folder. Actually, I can even just put it right in the source. Put it right here. I'm going to make a new folder under source, new directory called CSS. I'm then going to copy the minified Bootstrap that we've already downloaded and put in our original project, going to copy it in here, and then we can include it on the index.html. Then we can style our table with Bootstrap. So I'm going to go to my original project tracker, inside of public, style sheets. Here's the minified Bootstrap. I'm going to copy it, go to our single page app, inside of client, source, and CSS. I'm going to paste it in here. So you can see my file path, client, source, CSS. So now we'll be in source, CSS, and I'll add Bootstrap. So this is in the index.html. This is the only page that loads. Let's see what's going on here. What's going on here? Change the title and added Bootstrap. I didn't put it inside of app. I just put it inside of source. So yes, if you put yours inside of app, that's fine. Then you'll need it in the path. But my title didn't update either, which is a little puzzling to me. Let's try in another browser for a second. Okay, so my title did update now. Maybe I do have to move my CSS. Let's see. Huh. Oh, I think the path, I'm already in source. I think I have to take this out. Let's see if that's my path. Just a path issue. Okay, I will figure out the path. Bear with me for a sec. Where do I want to put my CSS? Sorry, folks. We'll get there. We're almost there. I'm going to add a couple classes to the table. Table, striped, and table hover. Thanks, Hung. Let's try that. This is driving me crazy. This is clearly not the right path because it's still not loading our CSS. Okay. Maybe I'm just going to move Bootstrap right to the source folder. Let's try that. And now it should be in the same folder as my index file. Not ideal. Just use like the CDN. Yeah, I guess I could do that. It's not a bad idea. We could try this. Thanks, Hung. Let's just use the CDN. We'll see how that goes. Okay. So we have Bootstrap, our tables 100%. I'm not sure why I don't have table striped and table hover. These classes should exist. It's kind of odd. I'll figure it out. See if we inspect the table Y. or these new classes. I'm not sure where our striping is, or our hover effect, but at least we've got Bootstrap for now. Okay, so our app is working. We've got our layers where we've turned our Node app into an API. We're accepting requests only from the client URL. And at least so far, we can fetch data. We can pass it to our service, which calls get. The service hands the data to our component. And our component can pass the data to our HTML view and render it. So we've done a fair bit today. I think we should stop here. What we'll do with this next week is we'll add a form onto this page. So not only can we add a new project, but we can also edit or delete a project, and all of that data will change in real time without any need for the page to refresh. But at least now we have all of the elements we need: the server API, the Angular service, the Angular component, the Angular HTML file. So what we'll do next week is in our API controller, we'll need post, put, and delete methods for adding, editing, and deleting. Our service is going to need an add project, update project, delete project method. And our component is going to need a form and edit and delete buttons as well. So we're in a good place to start. I'll also clean up this piece with our configuration, and we'll clean up our date formatting and our table formatting as well. So I will push everything we've done up to GitHub now. And I hope you all have a safe and enjoyable long weekend, and we'll finish our app next week. We've made a good start. So thanks for all your time and attention today, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Assignment 2, remember you're working on it for next week. Okay?